Hi, I'm Allen Steadham, and I'm doing my very first YouTube Live. And this is in celebration of a new release I have today called Jordan's Arrow. And Jordan's Arrow is the second book in a trilogy. It's part of a Christian science fantasy series. And it goes way back. I had the idea for it in 2015, and it originally was going to be a Wattpad serial story with many chapters, but I did that for a while. This is before I got traditionally published. I was considering the self-publishing route, and Wattpad seemed like an interesting option, but I really wasn't satisfied with the length of the chapters and the format. Nothing against Wattpad. Wattpad's cool, but it wasn't working for me. So I went ahead and developed it as a full novel. And so come around to February 2018, 2 years ago, and I found out about a Twitter pitch event called #FaithPitch. So I decided, since Jordan's World was finished, I decided to enter that in the Faith Pitch event, 280 characters. It was seen by an editor from a small Christian publisher called Ambassador International. And so that editor contacted me, told me how to submit the manuscript. I submitted it, and 2 days later, I heard back from the publisher himself, who was pleased with it, understood what I was trying to accomplish with it, and offered me a contract. And long story short, that turned into a 3-book deal in addition to my debut novel, which was Mindfire. But Mindfire is a standalone novel, and Mindfire is a superhero thriller, also Christian fiction. So we're here tonight to talk about Jordan's Arrow. But since I know most of you are going to be brand new to this, I'm going to give you a little bit of background on the characters, which does start in Jordan's World, the first book. So Jordan's World starts with the premise that Jordan Lewis, when she was 17 years old, she and her mother were abducted by aliens and taken to an Earth-like world called Algoran. And they were marooned there by the aliens, and they were taken in by a local tribe called the Makta. And the Makta was friendly, and they were accustomed to this happening. This wasn't the first time that Earthlings had been dropped off on this world. It had just been a little while since the last time it happened. So Jordan and her mother were taken in. They had to learn a new language, the Makta language. They had to adapt to the culture and learn how to find a place for themselves there amongst this tribe, because there was no indication that they would ever have a way of going home. Now, skip ahead 4 years in the first book, and the scene is set that Jordan is trying to kind of find her place. The culture is different, and life is more precious because there's less of it. It's a harsher environment. It's colder. There's not as many people on Algoran as there are on Earth, and there's some pretty dangerous forces, both of animals and outside of Algoran. And so she has become a hunter during these last 4 years, and a pretty good one. And so she and 3 other members of her hunting pack set out to try and find the aliens that Jordan calls the abductors. So they go across the world, and they face a lot of threats and things. But along the way, Jordan has a life-changing experience in that she comes close to death, And in that moment, she is contacted by God and she's given a choice. And so after she makes that choice, the rest of her life changes. Now, to be clear, it's not a spoiler to say that she does not become a Christian in the first book, but her eyes are opened up to the fact that God is real and that He reigns over the entire universe. So being on another world is not a big deal for God. And so we get to further along in the book, and Jordan faces more threats, and she actually encounters a legendary figure from uh, from Makta history, and actually this is a figure that is revered and feared throughout all of this world of Algoran, and that her name is Snowfire. And as far as anyone knows, Snowfire is immortal, at least 10,000 years old, and a fierce warrior. She goes by the nickname Spirit of the Mountain, and that is in reference to the mountain where the Makta live. They actually live on a mountain, and they consider themselves Snowfire's descendants. So something happens along the way, and Jordan is once again imperiled and nearly dies, and she gets a blood transfusion from the actual Snowfire, which changes her in numerous ways, changes Jordan in numerous ways. Um, and so, also along the way, uh, Jordan gets married. And so we start off Jordan's Arrow, where it's 6 years after the events in Jordan's world. And so Jordan is now, she's been married for 6 years. She has a 5-year-old son. She married one of the Makta. And so she has a biracial son who is half human and half Makta, and also inherited some of the physical changes that happened to her when she got the blood transfusion. And I'm going to drink some tea now. So, excuse me. So in Jordan's Arrow, another thing that's going on. So Jordan has a 5-year-old son, and at the beginning of the book, she's pregnant with her second child, a daughter. She's also being prepared to be chiefess, the next chiefess of the Makta. So she has had to learn a lot of stories. The Makta don't have a written language. They tell everything through stories and song. So she's had to learn an oral history as well as their laws, and so 5-6 years is a good amount of time to be prepared. So at the same time that she is taking on new roles as chiefess, there is a new threat. More tea. Excuse me. So there is another tribe on this world that they're called the Gulsta. They're old enemies of the Makta. The Makta actually fought them some years before and defeated them. And so the Gulsta have a new leader and a new plan. They want to expand their territory. They feel that they are strong and that they deserve to conquer whatever they can conquer. And so they're on another region of the world, and so they are basically setting out with a huge army, and they are set to not just take the land, but to basically slaughter anybody in their path. They're not interested in taking anybody hostage or anything like that. They just want the land. They want to make it theirs, and they don't care who gets in the way. They feel that they feel that they deserve this, and that it is their world to take. So their long-term goal is to take the Makta lands in revenge for their past defeat. So now we've got Jordan, who is this new chiefess. She's got virtually no experience aside from, like, conducting some weddings and learning the laws and maybe hearing a few disputes and helping to solve those disputes among the tribespeople. But this is essentially a world war, and Jordan really doesn't know what to do, and she's got a kind of conflict in that she has she can get guidance from God, listening to that sweet spirit, or she can lean on the former chiefess and the elders of the tribe and their experience with this foe. So what is she going to do? Is she going to turn to God, or is she going to turn to man for her answers? And what decisions will she make as a result of that? And also, how will this snowfire blood within her, how is that going to affect things? How is that going to determine her strategies and what she does or doesn't do? And all the while, her main concern is for her immediate family, for her tribe, for this world that she has come to love. And so it's a serious challenge for her. And of course, another thing is I like to throw in twists. So there's twists. Oh, and I can't forget to add this. There's also dragons. Yes, dragons, alien dragons. You're going to like the dragons. Um, they actually play a very significant role in this story, particularly in Jordan's Arrow. And so it was fun to write them because it takes a little something different to get into the mindset of an animal, particularly an animal that can breathe fire and basically destroy whatever it wants, and yet somehow, keep this in a in a format that tells a clean story. There are no curse words. There are no sex scenes. There is violence. Okay, it's PG-13 on violence. I will say that up front. But it's a war book, and it's a harsh environment. That said, excuse me. That said, um, this is still a PG-13 book. I would not recommend it for young children, but I would say upper teens to young adults to adults would enjoy this book. And this, when I write, okay, I'm a non-denominational Christian, but I write for the average person, and um, I don't write stories for, well, the way I like to put it is I don't try and do preachy stories or preach to the choir. I predominantly write for non-Christians, or people who are seeking God, seeking Christ. And these these stories are designed to be relatable. Um, Different ones of my books have different themes to them, and this one is pretty much about finding who you are, and also dealing with consequences for actions, unintended consequences, because you don't have to be on an alien world or dealing with anything like that. We all make mistakes, and sometimes we make some pretty bad mistakes. And so Jordan and others, they have to um, deal with that. They have to reconcile themselves with that, and it's not easy. And ultimately, what I want to show is that when we're faced with such challenges, we have to turn to God at some point. I mean, I know people don't, and people have different belief systems, and I respect that. That said, I'm a Christian author, so I'm going to put across uh, what I have experienced. I'm going to put across um, what the Lord shows me to write, what He inspires me to write, and in the end, uh, the stories are gonna point heavenward. They're gonna point towards God, His Son Jesus Christ, and the Holy Spirit. And what my hope and desire is, regardless of what your belief system is, and that this will challenge you, that this will give you something to think about, and nothing that I do is overt in your face, but I also don't shy away from a message. But the point of everything in this is that it should be relatable. None of it's going to beat you over the head. It's part of the story. I integrate spiritual and Christian themes into the story. They're not separate from it. And so Jordan's Arrow is no exception to that. Um, but the idea is to see this young woman, Jordan, and the decisions that she makes and how it affects the people around her, how it even ends up affecting an entire world. And to find out how and why, you'll have to read the book. But I think that it makes for a compelling story, and these characters should be relatable. And it doesn't matter what world they're on, what race they are, they're people. And um, and I think that comes through above all else. Um, Now, Jordan's Arrow is available through Amazon. It is available through Barnes and Noble, through Kobo, and iBook. It is available in print and ebook formats. Now, you can access all these links for all of my books in one place at my website, allensteadham.com. That's https://ALLENSTEADHAM.com, allensteadham.com. And go to the section marked books, and there you'll find Mindfire, Jordan's World, and Jordan's Arrow all in one spot. You'll have all the buy links right there, and you'll also have links to the reviews on Amazon and Goodreads. So I encourage you to do that, to take advantage of that. And there's a lot of other goodies at the website as well. I do have a blog there, and I have upcoming events. I've got a links page that goes to past interviews, and that'll basically show you what all's coming up. I've also got some select videos, including some audio interviews that I did on podcasts, and I've just been working to try and provide you an entertaining experience, just like I'm trying to do here on YouTube. And so I appreciate you taking the time to check this out, and I encourage you to to like the video, subscribe to this channel, click the bell for notifications, and share the videos that you find if you like them. And we'll see you next time. Thanks.